States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for coming. We'll get started here. Sorry, guys.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second. Motion second, discussion? Hearing none, signature vote.
We're still doing the basketball at the end, right?
At the very end.
After his speech.
Okay, motion carries 6-0. Student acquisition, state basketball.
Oh, here it is now.
Yes, we slipped it up in front, so.
Yes.
Justin, you wanna come on down? We'd certainly like to congratulate the basketball folks. You got the floor, Justin.
Oh, my God.
The Board of Education's developed a practice of inviting students and their parents to the board meeting to recognize them for placing in state tournaments.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, thank you guys. Really appreciate you guys having us here as well. Especially too, we've had a long time to kind of reflect on it now, and where we're able to kind of, really celebrate what we did and what these guys did. Really proud of these guys for everything that they did this season from start to finish. I mean, these guys have worked hard for, their whole lives, and it really showed off. I felt like in this state tournament, we talk a lot about representing ourselves, our school, and our community, and I felt like we did that at a very high level this, not just March, but November on too. So, as you know, we've got a lot of guys back too, so we're excited for years to come as well. And but at the end of the day, we're really thankful for the two seniors we have as well. Like I said, maybe what they did on the floor wasn't nearly as much as what they did off the floor for us as well. They're tremendous leaders. You couldn't ask for two better seniors. We're really proud of these guys.
Have them come down.
Yeah.
Okay, this way. Have you go down there.
Yeah, Caleb Burke. Troy Over. Sean Motts. Alex Motts. Maddox Cheever.
Good job, kid.
Talis Sharp. Case Burke. Gage Navarro. Tegan Smith. Mason Collins. Bodie Cheever. Brecken Peterson. Braisden Spring. Max Acton. And Ollie Hazen. And a lot of those names are playing baseball right now. Yeah.
We need a picture.
Yes, Craig Coolman's going to get a picture.
Of you guys.
And
Recognition of the staff.
Oh, yeah. Coach Mott.
Double overtime, hard racing, and triple overtime.
Yeah, Lisa Motts and Damon Schmidt.
We can take one here, but we'll go out in the hall too. And take
Good job from our
Don't hold it in front of your face.
Keep going.
We'll take another one out in the hall. Better picture.
Great season, guys.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for coming. You bet. Well deserved. Thank you.
All right, 5 push-ups though for each of you that left your chair out, that Coach Moggs had to push in. So.
Everyone, 5 seconds.
Thank you.
Okay, that's fun. Comments, concerns Burlington, communications. Written communications? None. So we are up to Darla.
And she's not here, they have a fourth grade music program tonight, if I remember correctly.
Does anybody have any questions they need to pass on to Darla? Okay. Matt Spring, you're up.
Probably the highlight is, the end of the third quarter and our honor rolls. Just again shows the dedication to students and staff and that they're getting it done on a daily basis in the classroom. And I think it's always good to remember that, you know, when they take a state assessment, it's a one-time shot on that day. And when, you know, so something that I've started doing is going back historically and looking at our honor rolls compared to how are we performing level 2 and 3 on our state assessments, that we're gonna look at there. And then also this week, Wednesday, we have a BLT meeting that we're going to be looking at some ways of how we can get creative to provide some interventions, more interventions for kids. So we're gonna be looking at that this Wednesday. That was something that we talked about and shared at our site council linkage specifically, so. Got a couple ideas there, we're gonna look at it as a staff, as our BLT, and then take it to the staff from there.
You have any questions for Matt? Thank you, Matt.
No, well, I was just comment, I appreciate the Alice training set up and doing that. Every time I hear of our buildings doing that, it's, I like to see our engagement with local sheriff's department, and we got some feedback about some things that maybe we can get better at. I'm glad we identified them so we can, so it's awesome to have that training. Obviously, the people in it were engaged, so that was.
Oh, it is, I'll tell you what, it was comical, so, I was actually, Maddie Wilson, myself and Kat Elliott were near your door watching the linked up, getting some stuff there, and so I came back and they were like, hey, why don't you come watch? So Garrett Hahn goes to go in the first classroom there at the front of the building, and I think it was Jeannie Solano threw a trash can at him. And hit him with a trash can. Sage is hitting him with a ruler, and like he takes off and runs the other way. And so it was pretty comical. I mean, they were engaged, and it's just one of those things. If you get in that pinch, hey, whatever you can do, fight. So.
Okay,
Really, the only thing I'm gonna add on here is, we 2 weeks ago changed, if you have a high schooler, you probably have heard, our power hour format during the middle of the day. Spent a lot of time with our BLT team, discussing different ways to improve that. Spent a lot of time observing, how the format works, checking our kids on their eligibility reports. Actually observed 2 other schools and how they do theirs a little bit differently than ours. And spent a lot of time with our staff in terms of how to collect the appropriate attendance data, how to communicate with staff on where for kids to go, and then explain the different in-services on how we were gonna get this changed. And 2 weeks ago, we completely changed our format mid-school year. And the purpose of doing that was to do about a 6-week trial run to see if it worked. And then if it worked, then we would keep that for next year. And if it didn't work, then how can we make it more efficient and better for next year? So far, we had a BLT meeting last week. So far, the changes have been receptive staff. And really what the big change was, during our power hour, kids that are on the tutoring list would all come into here, and then we would have assigned teachers come in to help them in this area. The issue with that was the teachers were having to move from their room to come into here, and then everybody gets in here at a different time. And then there was kids that were needing help with specific content areas that on that specific day, there may not be a teacher in that area that would need to help them. So for instance, if there's a kid in here for upper level math tutoring, Ms. Harrison may not even be in here on that day based off scheduling. So what we did instead was the first day of the week, when our kids are in with their CAP teacher, seminar teacher, they get assigned teachers for the rest of the week based off their grades. So kids now go to that specific teacher versus everybody coming into here. So the kids are getting more individualized instruction on the areas that they need in that classroom with that teacher. It took the kids about 2 days to figure out the change during the middle of the day. We've had to reconfigure our lunches, and so it's taken some communication on a multitude of different parts, but I'm pretty proud that we were able to recognize that we had a problem, communicate that problem, examine the data on how to change it, observe other schools on how we could make it better, and then put it into action during the middle of the school year. And then at our next in-service, we'll talk about the strengths and weaknesses of it and see if we need to change it or keep it that way this year. So we completely revamped it during, right after spring break. So so far it's going well, but credit to our staff for willing to recognize that something's not working, and then instead of waiting until the start of next year to change it, doing it now, and collecting that data, and see where we go for next year. So.
Good, thanks. Any questions, Luke? Great, thank you, Lee. Lindsay?
Really a big thing in special ed is after spring break, we really start shifting our gear for next year and looking at some things. We've had some setbacks in the last week, so we've had to kind of do triage a little bit to just fill some great things like babies being born and different things have taken staff out. So we kind of triaged through that today, and kudos to these two admin next to me because it's affected their buildings the most. And so being able to regroup and make sure everybody's needs are still met. And that went pretty smoothly today, and I anticipate it will continue to do that. As far as openings, from the professional standpoint, we had 3 sped teacher openings this year, 3.5, and we've filled 2 of those already, so have 1.5 to fill before we have to start really scrambling, but so we still have some time, so we're looking to fill those. But as far as filling those for next year, that's good.
Great.
Are there any upcoming career fairs at schools, or are those all done?
They're pretty much done.
Yeah.
But like here, we filled one because, when they had openings, if they had sped, like, went and sat in on it and actually were able to get one. And so, I met with other one of my openings is in outer districts, and so I met with them about if you're filling and you have other candidates, let's start trying to pull and see what we can fill that way too. So, if we're already getting in the door, maybe we can get them for us too. So, and we've actually done that a couple times. So.
Great. Thank you, Lindsay. Anything else, Lindsay? Greg Goulman.
We'll add on there that we did go live with our new eFunds, and it's been used a lot. Right now, we've got instant notifications, so every time a person uses it, it sends it to us. So we're getting, Christy and I are getting lots of emails right now, but it's allowing us to see, that it is getting used and working well, and so we're looking forward to, doing even more with it, and it's been successful so far. We did, when we first put it online for about an hour, it was not operational, so it was like right after we sent out the email, it wasn't operational, but they found that they had there had been a stoppage between our link and from our SIS and their system, so they got that restarted, and within a couple minutes, everything was great again, so, a lot of people have been using it.
Okay, thank you, Craig.
I appreciate that as a parent.
Yeah, that's always, I mean, it's great, any way to make it easier for people to.
Yeah, well, and we'll be able to, in the past, like at enrollment time, parents would kind of have to guess what they owed based on what their food service status was the previous year. And so we'd end up having some parents who should be free would pay the whole amount, and we'd end up having to, Christie would end up having to like send them money, back, and things like that. We'll be able to, with this system, be able to tell them when they log in, it'll say, this much, and then we'll talk in the future also. We've got, the possibility of if we wanna charge an extra charge if you're enrolled in, say, an art class because of, the materials that you would use. We would have those opportunities as well, so, but parents would go into enrollment knowing exactly what they owe. And for, we can, we'll be able to decide this as a district, but, like for enrollment, we can set it to where parents can make payments toward their enrollment. So if they can't pay that whole amount at one time, it will deduct from that if we choose to, say, allow partial payments. So, for some of those parents who need a kind of a payment plan, that can be put in place.
Great. Good work.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Greg Marshall, you're up.
We continue to see a lot of activity out of Wildcat Athletic Complex. It's that time of year where it's warm and people want to be outside and doing a lot of different things. And again, just a lot of different things happening out there, outside, not only with our athletic teams, but little kids' sports and activities, as well as our PE classes being out there and so on and so forth. Just, as a matter of fact, today, due to Prairie View's field conditions not being good, we hosted JV baseball here instead of having to go to Prairie View. So that was a nice
Right
plus.
there. You have to drive to Prairie View once.
Exactly. So, and then also, again, allows our kids to be able to play and compete. We just don't, so a lot of times, unfortunately, JV games get canceled and it's hard to make them up. So, it's a very nice positive. You have a report there, it's attached, it's Parents as Teachers report. This program is funded through the Mobilizing Literacy Walter and Evan Jones Testamentary Trust Grant. Darla Long and I started work on this 10 years ago, and again, Parents as Teachers, we had it in the district. They dropped it due to funding before I got here. We fired that back up with the grant, with the Mobilizing Literacy Grant. There's two big key components of the money that we use there. That's the Parents as Teachers program that funds Lori Johnson, which she's been here at different times to report, as well as the pre-K and kindergarten liaison position, Amanda Briggs. So again, there's a report there. You can look at that, just some information. Again, it's a grant that's currently, I say, we don't know if it's going to continue on in the future. We're not sure. Parents as Teachers, part of that for us is around the $25,000 amount. About 25 kids that are seen by Lori, again, birth to age 5. So anyway, there's also some information there. One of my colleagues did some research and data gathering on certified and classified salaries and just information in general. This is not an all-inclusive list of all 286 school districts in the state of Kansas, but there's quite a few that did respond. And just give you some information there that you can look at and see if you're interested in. And then Christy and I are going to do a quick review of this SNP, that School Nutrition Program, and the CACFP, which is Child and Adult Care Food Program. Yeah, acronym world that we live in here. You'll have a couple of reports that you see. And again, big kudos go out to Christy and her and then just our staff in the central office dealing with a variety of different things, with different reports that we're required to give throughout the year. Christy, I don't know if you want to say anything.
I think the report's pretty self-explanatory. The site review occurs once every 3 years, and they look at a lot of data, everything from our financials to, actual sale point of service, and, what everything looks like in our kitchens. And this particular review was done primarily at, the site was the elementary school. And they were very complimentary of us.
If you look at that audit report, I will just say this, not every district gets an audit report like we get. And matter of fact, this year, they did it completely remote, didn't they?
They did our KSDE audit.
Yes.
All remote.
Yes, completely remote. That was a little nerve-wracking for us, because we like to have them there and talking to them. And you weren't exactly sure, you don't get a feel for people when they're not there again. So, but long story short, when you look at that last conclusion paragraph again, not everybody gets a report like this, and they were, again, very complimentary of our staff. So, again, kudos. And I think that is it. Questions for me?
It looks like we did come up with some opportunities to improve, just looking to see what the, I guess it says, does that affect us, the internal protocols, additional staff training?
I think we're always working to get better.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, and that's what that's how I look at an audit. So whatever they might look at, for example, it could be as minute as, so we take in several food service applications, and it could be as minute as I didn't sign it. To as big as, well, also as minute as, why did you have cucumbers from Mexico? I mean, we
Yeah.
have to account for that and explain for that. So it could be very, very small, or it could have been, large, like we, were serving spoiled food, or we were serving, meals that were not reimbursable, which would have a financial impact.
Okay, on the Jones Trust grant, the last sentence, we aren't sure if this grant will continue to be funded in the future. Is that from the state funded?
No,
or-
Walter and Evan Jones Testamentary Trust Grant funds grants for 3 different counties, Lyon, Coffee, and Osage. These are oil men that had a lot of money and didn't have family to give it to, so they put this grant. They love teachers, they loved education. This is the history that I've gotten from representatives with the Jones Trust Grant. And so they put money into education and funded a lot of different opportunities. We'll see if it continues.
So we don't have any action, it's just, if it's
No.
available,
It's-
we get it, we don't have to apply.
I hosted the Jones Trust people here because they had new leadership, one new leader, I'm sorry, and one, Greg, I'm drawing a blank on Greg's last name, but, anyway, I hosted them in January here in Burlington to come out to lunch, showed them what we've done with the Jones Trust Grant, the baseball, softball, restroom concession stands. We've done, the Belk, talked to, invited Amanda Briggs and Darla Long to join us and tell about what Amanda does and what we've accomplished. And just wanted them to know really what we've done, and it's created some opportunities. Like, for example, the Belk. That has created a wonderful opportunity for us to, impact early education, but it's also, it is a springboard into pre-K. We only had one pre-K teacher when I first got here, and you only had one morning and one afternoon section. We had, as the board, we've added a second pre-K position, to be able to fund 2 full-time positions, 2 morning sessions, 2 afternoon sessions. So I wanted to tell them that not only what the Jones Trust Grant has provided for us, it's created opportunities where our board has expanded what they have, started with us with their generous donations towards education in Burlington.
Thanks.
Yes.
Okay, anything else for Craig?
I don't know, I feel this way, I don't know what the rest of you think, but Craig, if you could write an article for the newspaper, about, like, some of the funding that we're losing and potentially losing. So like, was mentioned in the tech report, like the IXL program, right? The special education, how it's not fully funded. I don't even know that most people are aware of that. And anything that they additionally may have cut. JC's position potentially, the after-school program grant that, you know, I just think it would be good for people to be aware of what has been cut, what's not being fully funded, and what we might be looking at, like, being cut. I just think it'd be good for our constituents to be aware of, like, what we're kind of facing here.
Yeah, and talking about it, you know, a year before some of it hits the fan. And
Right.
having conversations, so we're thinking that if, you know, the after-school program's not funded through a grant, I think
Right.
the board's committed to trying to make it happen somehow.
Just so the public's aware, like, this has already been cut.
Yeah.
These are what grants, you know, have been cut, and this is what might potentially not be funded in the future. And like, just so that the public's aware of kind of.
We're not trying to get it, but there's a fund there.
Right, yeah, you know, I think that when they hear, well, they didn't keep our position, or they didn't keep this program and cut it. Well, it's not, it's bigger than us, it's taking that money away. So, I think that's good to get that message out there. I don't know if there's anything.
It's always open.
If nobody else has anything, we're great. I'll go
Yeah.
back, and Darla, do you have anything
Yeah.
you wanna mention as you're here?
One thing that's kind of popped up just recently is, so like last weekend, on Easter weekend, I borrowed some tables and chairs from the school, and I went to take them back. Like, there was a lot of people at our park, which is fine, except like there was animals on our turf, which I think is inappropriate. And then we've also, this is something we kind of talked about a couple of years ago, and you know, the board supported this position, and like our school park is closed to public from, you know, during our operating hours. And I just dropped the ball on getting some signage posted. That I talked to Craig this week, like, I really feel like we kind of need to get that signage, and maybe some signage that says like, you know, pets on the turf. Because, I mean, people aren't necessarily cleaning up after their animals. And just that doesn't help the life of that stuff. So, just so you're aware, you're looking at getting some signs and getting those posted out in these facilities.
Trying to be devil's advocate.
Sure.
If somebody's has their animals on the turf, what can we do?
Well, I mean, there's nothing we can do if we're not there policing it all the time. I mean, if we're there, we can just say off. Like, we also have people like that ride their bikes. I mean, I personally believe our turf takes a lot of abuse in the after hours, and our camera on that side doesn't extend all the way. You know, I don't know if there's a possibility of getting a camera somewhere else that gives us a better view. But, you know, we've had some vandalism issues early on when we got that equipment that, you know, the police were happy to help us try to address as best they could. But
I don't disagree with you, Darla, I totally agree with you, but is there something that we need to do as a board for policy, or is there something we need to talk to the chief of police for?
I don't know, I think at least if it's posted and you come back and there's an issue and you had some video evidence, you could at least open a conversation with those people to like be respectful of
Yeah.
that.
Sometimes you
And
can tie those minutia type offenses into a trespass offense.
Mhm.
Like if you say you're in here at certain times when you're not supposed to be, you will be charged with trespassing.
Mhm.
Or if you're in here with a dog, you will be charged with something else that kind of fits.
You know, one of the things is like our facility is, it's a taxpayer facility, the park.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't want it to be closed all the time, but this conversation actually started when our after-school program was like busting at the seams and people were having their kids out there. When we're already supervising 100 kids, or attempting to, and then like, you know, they were kind of loitering around after school because it's a nice day and people wanna play. And so we're like, we can go use that park, but like this park is really our after-school facility, part of our programming at this time. And really, for the most part, it has worked nicely, to just tell people, this park is closed right now. But I think some other things are popping up, so some signage there will be helpful. But just, I mean, that day I was like, you know, when I took those tables and chairs back, there was 3 dogs running all over a bicycle kind of, and I'm like, you know.
Were they offline?
Online.
There were 2 that were on, and then one I think maybe had been tied up, and then it took off running, and they couldn't capture, and it was quite an ordeal. But,
Sorry.
just,
Sounds
you
like a
know,
good plan.
Well, then
that
it
turf
becomes
was an
a,
investment for us, and, you
Right.
know,
yeah,
I think the
it
signage.
becomes a
is-
liability if someone has a dog there and then someone else's children are there and
Oh.
someone gets bit or, you know, and it's on our.
Well, I think the signage will at least maybe
If we
keep
just
honest
say
people
can't
honest.
hopefully
have
deter
kids
a
here,
little bit,
that-
I mean, I guess is really what we're just hoping for.
Yeah.
So that would be just one thing to add, that was my.
I think you contacted a sign company today to get
I
some,
did.
to get the ball rolling,
Yeah.
multiple signs in multiple multiple spots.
Yeah, that's right.
Is that a private company or just through the city?
It's somebody that Jim said that we used before, it's a company out of Ottawa.
Okay.
So,
I know we did have a sign shop or something, I don't know how the county or the city does signs, but it sounds like you got it worked out.
yeah, I wasn't aware, I mean, I just called everything, I'm like, who does signs on the market?
Okay, thank you, Darren. Anything else for Darren?
I would just recommend just to highlight the hours and keep the dogs off. I think we should steer clear of any trespassing comments or any
Yeah,
signs.
I asked the lady to give me a quote that just said like, no animals or something, and like the other one used to say like, close, however you would word it, like, close to public from 7:30 to 5:30.
Johnny, the reason I mention that is the one time that someone goes out there and says, didn't you see the sign, you can't be here, and they tell her to, you know, whatever,
Yeah.
then she just has to go in with her tail tucked. She has nowhere, she has no grounds. It's like a law enforcement officer doing something that's not illegal, go in and say something, you gotta have some grounds to be able to say something to somebody.
I'd say start off a little nicer. If we need to get meaner, we can. I go on Facebook, tell people we're gonna fence it, not get everybody up in arms. Okay,
Thank you.
nobody has anything else to draw to us, so we'll move on to board reports. Any board members have anything they wanna bring up? I just had one thing, cell, or bell, no cell next year, right, with the whole no cell phones. The state gave us 0 money to spend on implementing this program. So in my opinion, every dollar we spend on it, whether it's Cubbies or whatever, blah, 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 is coming out of staff salaries. Because it's gonna come out of general fund, so I think we should spend exactly how much money the state gives us on implementing it.
We have begun having conversations about this KASB, as I mentioned to you in my Friday, notes to you guys. We've started having discussions and we wanna have some input from KASB on policy and procedure, and I know Craig is gathering some information as well. So we've got some time to sort through this, but you're right, it's one of those unfunded mandates.
not fun. You can put that in the article. You can add that in there,
Hang on.
of what we're being directed to do without all this money, all the money we're raising.
We haven't gotten official guidance, but we did receive an email last week that, I believe it was KASB, it was either them or KSDE, I'm not sure which one, which group, but that they have visited with some of the legislature, and their intent was not really as deep as they have in the law. And so they're, looking at if they can work with them to kind of make a compromise, because a lot of them were like, well, we just kind of wanted them in backpacks. Well, it's not what it says. It's not what it says,
Turned off and inaccessible.
Exactly.
Locker is accessible.
Yeah.
Don't we have
so-
these
Exactly.
hanging up in most of the classrooms?
But.
Yeah.
They have to be
those
accessible.
cases, we can't do that.
Yeah.
Just hang them really high.
Well,
So-
the problem,
Yeah, police.
So we are waiting for a little bit more information. We had talked about, okay, we're just not allowing them to come. But then, or they need to leave them at home or in their car. Well, that doesn't work with middle schoolers.
Right.
Middle schoolers don't drive here, so, when they're trying to contact after practice at 5:30 PM, for a pickup or whatever, that doesn't work. So, You know, we may have to come up with some sort of system at, you know, the middle school differently than we would the high school, differently than we would the elementary, so. We are working on, working on
It can
that.
get pricey if, for example, if you put a cell jammer around this building, but yet our administrators may need it, and some kids who have medical issues with, let's say, diabetic situations, where, again, there will be some exceptions. You could have students check them in, and we could have them hanging in the buildings, and then at the end of the day, mass checkout at the high school, for
Right.
example, 250 kids all of a sudden wanting their cell, they want it now, because they gotta get to practice, or they gotta get to work, or whatever. That would be utterly chaotic. So, yeah, the thought process on this bill, yeah, again, like Craig said.
Good
well,
intentions, but.
Yeah, they didn't necessarily do the due diligence, but anyway.
I know there are schools even in our league that have a no-cell policy, and so we can kind of ask out, see what they've done. And part of that, I think we need to make sure we keep the communications with the public open, so they're not shocked at enrollment, which they
Right.
probably still will be, staff might be. And it goes to other things too, like social media interactions with students via teachers, is that right? That was in there.
Mhm.
We're supposed to be getting something with the ASB as far as.
We will, and they're hopefully gonna have policy updates sooner than later this year because of what's happening with the legislature.
So anyway, I just wanted to put my 2 cents out there.
Good thoughts.
So who wants to talk on the results report? Middle school and elementary.
Sure, I can go first. Couple year, or I guess it would have been, seems like a couple years ago. My first year was, one of the things the board wanted was for, middle school kids to have PE every day, and so we're still able to do that. If we ever went to a 7-period day, I think it'd be pretty tough, to be able to get kids into PE every day. The strength, power, and speed class, we're at capacity. We've been at capacity at 42. And there are a few kids that are on the waiting list, for that. So I think that's awesome that, you know, we started this 2 years ago. We're quite at capacity, and every kid wants to be able to do it, within that. So, maybe we can expand that in the future. All kids get to roller skate except a few. Maybe if you broke your arm last year, like one of my kids, he did not participate in roller skating, he did not want to. And then also, you know, 7th grade and Hunter's Education is a huge hit. We're gonna look at making that, even more involved next year. You know, the Lonnie Jasper Foundation, bought pizza for the kids, and so, in talking to JJ, we're gonna try and add, some things to that day also, rather than just going out and doing the live shoot and eating pizza.
Who's
and
doing
just-
Hunter Education now?
Aubrey Karras and Taylor Wilson. And so Aubrey became fully certified last year, under Charlie Whitworth, and now Taylor's gonna have to go back and get that. Little over $7,000 in change in dodgeball for Hart, which is awesome. And then starting this year, it's kind of dependent on Mr. Bostic's schedule, but a lot of times kids could not take band and choir, and so we've worked that out this year, that if you're taking band, you can also take choir if you choose to. So hopefully that will help, because our vocal music, especially at the middle school, we were up pretty high. We were at 11 kids 2 years ago, I believe it is, and then we dropped back down. And so as we were looking at, that's one of the pieces is that they weren't able to take both. And so we worked out that schedule with Mr. Baldwin and Mr. Bostic's time to be able to allow kids to be able to do both. So hopefully our fine arts numbers will increase. And I think if you go to a music concert and you listen to our bands from 5th grade to high school, it is one of the most amazing nights, I think, because you hear the 5th graders start, then you go into 6th grade, then you hear 7th and 8th grade, and then you go into the high school and you kind of hear that top end, and it is impressive. Matter of fact, when we were at Emporia State, Darla and I people would come up and talk about Mr. Bostic and how, hey, we can student teach, or hey, if Mr. Bostic, we want to work with that guy. And so Billy has done just an excellent job with that program. So hopefully we can help support him in building vocal program even more so.
Mine really just has PE information in there, well, this doesn't apply to the elementary school. Do you have anything to add?
Anybody have any questions? Thank you, so we'll take
Move to accept the results two monitoring report concerning physical education, performing arts, and visual arts, and foreign language as reasonable progress toward meeting the board's results policies.
Second.
motion second, discussion.
The question I have for Matt is that you said we're at capacity for strength, power, and speed, is that because of teacher or space?
We get it for one class, and so, Coach Carl's can take 42 kids.
Come over here to
Over
Burlington
Yeah,
High
they
School.
come over here to the high school, yep.
And I'll add on to that, our new hire for PE also has a background in weights, so they're gonna co-teach that class together. 40-some kids in a weight room with one teacher is just asking for trouble.
No, we do send an aide, there is an aide that comes over to help support that,
So-
because it is a lot of kids.
Having two certified weights people in there is gonna be beneficial for our kids. And then at the freshman level, we've moved some classes around to give them more of an opportunity to take elective-based classes. And we're moving health back to be taught to all freshmen. The last 3 or 4 years, it's been, sophomores have been able to take it, to finagle some schedules, so we're moving that back down to all freshmen. So hopefully that will increase our numbers in there even more, to give kids more of an opportunity to be in there. So we'll have two certified high school teachers in there, co-teaching that class next year, so.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second for results monitoring acceptance. Any further discussion? Let's move to vote. Motion carries 6-0. Contracts for appointments.
This is the time of year when you see some information on open enrollment policy. We've talked this over with our administrative team, and you see this chart of information. Basically, to kind of give you just a general practice is what we're looking at. If you'll see, look at the chart in terms of, let's say, grade levels. We're trying to keep the numbers down, reasonable in terms of the class sizes. The elementary school, Darla and I talked and looked to see where we are now and where we project. You can see 53 is that number that we kind of came up with in terms of, even if you think it's about 18 approximately per grade, or per section in each grade level. And that's that rough number that we're looking at. Again, class size does matter. At the middle and high school, a little different. Classes are a little different with the bell schedule in terms of, an hourly period schedule. We talked about this in terms of the difference and again, the different electives they have. It's not a self-contained classroom. So you see where we can accept a little bit more there in terms of those grades. And our numbers, again, in terms of, those class sizes, approaching that 60 number. Now, again, high school, a little bit more, because again, we have even more electives. We're looking at about 65. And again, administrators, we've talked about this, we've discussed this, we've looked at this. It gives us some potential out-of-district, non-resident student enrollment capacity to take some kids. The kids that are already in out-of-district that were accepted before, they get to continue to stay. They do not have to apply. This does not count in, a student, like I say, that's a student in good standings, then great, we want them back. This is only for new students. So we have a little bit of capacity there, to look to potentially grow.
So these are projections, so if your projection, let's just say grade 5 level is 60 instead of 59, do you not accept anybody?
Well, if you look above the chart below, we have one
Right, that's what I said.
open spot, yes. So let's say we have 3 kids apply for that one open spot, it becomes what we call a lottery draw.
Okay.
Put 3 kids' name in the hat, you pull out whichever, and that's the way it
But I was
works.
just saying, the projection's 59, if that was 60, if you had 60 in there, you're right.
Yes, yes, we would not probably, there would be a 0 number
That's what
there.
that's what I was asking.
There could be. We talked also about the larger class sizes in terms of, let's say, if you look at, high school juniors and sophomores at 65, we put in a few there just because, again, if some people do wanna come our way. If we put 0 there, guys, we don't accept anybody, but we may have some kids that decide they wanna come. We never did put 0 in any of these, we at least wanted to have the ability to accept some kids and to, to be able to have kids join us. Now, again, if one of those non-resident students come to us and they are not attending, they're not, showing up, they're tardy, their grades are bad, their behaviors, if we accept them for a year and things don't go well, we can decide to pass. But we have to have, we've got those parameters in place per board policy that allows us to return to sender a student not in good standing. Questions on the charts?
So you said high school was 65.
The juniors and the sophomores projected for next year are 65.
You said our cap was at 65.
Yeah, but again, I didn't say our cap, I said we were trying to hold it in that general neighborhood of 60 to 65. We decided, in talking with Mr. Baldwin, we would have 3 open slots there.
It'd be 68.
So we could go to 68 there. We at least wanted to have a few possibilities in case some people want to transfer. Typically, what we're finding is, so for example, seniors typically aren't transferring to a different school. They get to be a senior, they're gonna stick it out, they're gonna ride it out with, the district that they're in. Could there be a potential for some seniors, depending on, a variety of different things, who knows? But typically, seniors, you don't have a whole lot of seniors wanting to switch their senior year. So we at least wanted to give the ability to accept students in each grade level and keep that number in that 65 to 68 range at the high school, and keep that number at the middle school, again, in that 60-ish range.
Now, if you come in one year and get accepted and you're in your year 2, does your slot then move up to the top, or do you stay filling that bottom slot?
Yeah, they do not count towards the open enrollment numbers.
Cause they're now in the.
They're in with us.
accepted.
Once you're in and you're in good standing, you are in, you don't count against that number.
Right.
Good question. Anything else?
It's a shuffleboard.
And then we will post this information on the website per policy.
And there's a cutoff date on this one. Oh, June 1, I said, okay.
Yes.
Okay. Exciting times, so,
And this was base aid number, if you look at that public content information at 5618 this past year, next year, base aid 26-27 school year will be 5782. A slight
Okay.
increase, which I've shared with you that information before.
motion to approve the USD 244 student enrollment projections and non-resident enrollment capacity as presented. Motion second, any discussion?
Looks like June.
Any discussion? Hearing none, submit your vote. Motion carries 6-0. Approval of the July 26-27 USD 244 calendar.
We thought we had Good Friday lined out, it turns out we didn't. We spend a lot of time making sure the calendar's right, but we whiffed on this, and so this is just a simple clerical error, and it's just one of those things that we missed, we got the wrong date.
It's a lot earlier.
Mhm.
It's like one of those holidays that moves.
Motion to approve the July 26-27 USD 244 school year calendar as presented.
Second.
Motion second, discussion. Hearing none, submit your vote. Motion carries 6-0. Green Bush Blended Learning MOU.
Okay, this is for Spanish classes. You've seen this information before. Again, because we're doing online Spanish, you see the number of students that are enrolled, anticipated for next year, and the cost. We're billed at two different times, October 1 and February 1, for the students involved in Spanish 1 and Spanish 2. And this total amount is approximately $18,000. It's a lot less expensive than having a Spanish teacher for 24 kids.
Entertained motion.
Is it effective though? I mean, I know it's cheaper than
It is.
having, but are they really learning?
It is effective. We do evaluate that.
I'll make a motion to approve the Green Bush Blended Learning Memorandum of Understanding for the purpose of delivering foreign language instruction to Burlington High School students for the 2026-2027 school year in the amount of $450 per student per semester.
Second.
Motion second. Any more discussion?
Looks like we still pay the $2,000, what's it called here? An annual fee of $2,000 per section, what's that? Of less than 10 students enrolled in the course, so if we have less than
Right.
10, so we
Right.
still pay, this is, we know we're paying 2,000, we're just making the motion to pay the 450.
Possibly. It depends on other school districts. If we can pool together and get 10 total,
I got you.
then if, let's say, 3 other schools have 3 other kids each, and then you throw us with 3, that's 12, they won't charge us that fee.
Okay. I'm with you now.
Good question.
Submit your vote. Motion carries 6-0. Negotiations, executive session.
You have some information that I don't believe we really need to go into executive session right now. We have our first meeting on Thursday set up, and maybe next month we'll be talking. They do, I did talk with Kathy Freeman. I asked her and the Buda representation if they would prefer to do negotiations sooner with me or later and start July 1 with Donaldson. They preferred to go with me and want to get it done sooner, and with the board, I should say not with me, but with the board, they want to try to get this done sooner because they would like to have their summer, and I think that's a good plan. So, and I have stayed in touch with Donaldson about this, and she would prefer not to have to jump right into negotiations right out of the chute. So I will keep her informed and, in discussions and what we're looking at doing every step of the way.
When is your first meeting?
This Thursday.
Can we go into executive session, please? Yeah, I would like to go into executive session.
On,
Negotiation.
on for negotiation?
Yeah,
How long you?
5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay.
Motion to recess into executive session for 5 minutes to discuss certified contracts pursuant to the exception of employee negotiations under comma, and to return to the open session in this room within about 5 minutes of the Grand Marshal and Lindsay Brown.
Second.
Motion second, any discussion? Submit your vote. Guess you got it dismissed, huh?
students know that?
No executive session personnel.
No, but, you do have, some information
there on your.
on 11A.
On 11A, so.
If you have any questions about any of those positions, that are listed in that document, please let me know before the May meeting. Again, a reminder, we approved the fall and winter supplementals. We hold off on spring until the spring seasons are over. Evaluations are done. Spring will be, those positions will be, approved at the June meeting.
But we won't have an executive session on that.
Yeah, unless you need one or want one. But if you have any questions about any of those positions, please let me know before the May meeting, and I will get information for you.
Okay? Yep. Don't hear anything, okay, we're moving on to student executive session, none?
Yep.
We have none there. Closing items. Anybody have anything else that we missed? Debriefing is good, discussion on Lincoln Circle tonight, and, so,